I'm bringing up a woman who is terrific. Libby is one of the most prolific and wonderful storytellers that we got here. She tells stories that are bold and courageous and funny and sweet. It's a bunch of everything, and she has such a good heart. It is always a pleasure to have her here. Always. Miss Libby Halevi.
This year for the holidays, I got a very rare set of 3 CDs. They were the Mather High School Symphonic Choir concerts of winter 1965, spring 66, and my high school production of The Mikado. And all of these point back to the one person who made all of this possible, a man named William G. Paulick. Did you ever have that one teacher who made all the difference in the world? That was Mr. P. I'm going to pass around these pictures. I'm actually in the background of the one on the bottom. He was in charge of symphonic choir, madrigal singers, and our school show, which he named Rutama. Rutama is the word amateur spelled backwards on behalf of the fact that we were a bunch of backwards amateurs. And he was such a character. I mean, he was bohemian, he was bold, he was wild, he was anti-establishment, and this was in the mid-1960s, which was very rare. He was already bald in the middle, so he shaved everything off. Not a common look in those days. And he was really against the administration of the school. He would do anything he could to subvert it on behalf of us being able to do art. And he would yell things at us. He would say, "You're not comfortable. If you're comfortable, you're not making progress, so get out." And he would say, "You will think that you're going to remember all of high school, but you won't. It's all going to fade. What you remember will be choir." Now, I majored in Paulick when I was in high school. I did a semester of girls' chorus, and then I did 3 years of symphonic choir, which overlapped with 2 years of madrigal singers, 3 years of Rutama, 2 of which I was on the writing staff as well as one of the performers, and I was his teacher's aide for a year and a half. It was all to get in this man's energy field, because in all of high school, he's what made sense. Nothing else made sense, but he did. And this is where I really discovered for the first time the power of being part of something larger than just myself. Every year he took untrained teenage voices and turned us into one of the top 3 high school choirs in the city of Chicago. And he had us perform in other places too. The man was a miracle in our lives. He was passionate, he was bold, and he modeled for us a way to be in life that was very different than what was being put forth as the way to be during that era. Well, I graduated in January of 1967. I was a mid-year graduate. And 6 months later, Paulick's relationship with the administration of the school, which had changed, caught up with him, because they took away all of his performing groups. No more symphonic choir, madrigal singers, or Rutama. And from that point on, for the next 20 or so years that he was a teacher, he did not have any performing groups at all. I mean, those kids were robbed. Last summer, I got an email from a friend of mine from that time, Rick, who was in choir with me, and he let me know that Paulick had passed away. He had been in a nursing home for many years, which explains why all of my searches for him on Facebook and Google did not turn up the person. Turned up a lot of William Paulicks, but not the right one. Now, in a stroke of timing that would be turned down by any writer in an elementary script class, but was the truth, the day of Paulick's memorial service was the same day as the Mather High School 50th anniversary of its founding all-class reunion. Everybody who'd ever been to Mather had been invited to the school. Now, I did not go back to Chicago for this. I've had enough of high school. But my friend Rick went to the memorial service where he ran into 2 others from choir from that little slender era where we had Paulick. And they spoke with each other. They connected. The other 2, I believe, were from out of town. And then that night at the reunion, those people tended to gravitate to the choir room where they found others who had been part of that era. And what evolved from that was an email group where we now have approximately 20 of us who are on there. And we all posted our memories of Paulick and what he meant to us and how he taught us that we could be more than who we thought we could be. And all these years later, remember, this was a school, this was not a privileged school, it was a Chicago public high school. All these years later, from the people in this E-group, Steve Owens, who had a really nice bass voice and a contentious personality, and he and Paulick didn't get along, but Paulick one time said to him, you know, you should think about singing opera. More than 40 years later, Steve Owens is a professional opera singer in Europe performing leads, and yes, he has recordings. Ed Linderman has composed music that has gone into 2 different Broadway shows. Aurene Zeitlin became a cantor, and she now does children's CDs. Charles Gerber has his own acting studio, and he's a respected director and actor and acting teacher. There are a number of theater producers, TV producers, photographers, people who went into the arts, and even those who are on this little e-group with each other who did not go into the arts, all posted back that somehow what happened in choir allowed them to be grounded in the reality of a life that was more than the one that they were currently living. In other words, Paulick made the difference. This is the one teacher who made the difference in so many lives. And me too. When I was 15 years old, a scene that I wrote for Rutama was perused by Mr. Paulick, and he looked at it, and he said, and he was very begrudging with compliments. So he read it, and he said, "Kid, you've got away with dialogue." And that has fueled more than 40 years of my life pursuing through this love of dialogue, seeing what I can do with it in plays, in musicals, in screenplays, and in storytelling. See what I can do with the words as can be expressed through the human voice. I know that because of him, it helped me survive during a time of my life that was very difficult, and I suspect that I was not the only one who he helped retain life during this very difficult period of time. And here's the thing about Mr. Paulick. He only was in charge of these groups for maybe 5 years. Everyone who came after was robbed. So when I got these CDs, I had a chance to listen to my high school triumphs. I got to hear where I could combine my voice with others and create joy and create beauty and create, again, the larger sense of who I was in the world and have a triumph that nobody could take away from me. And even more than that, I saw where my future began and the part of me that got to where I am now. I was a squeaky soprano who only hit those high notes with a sledgehammer, but by God, I was allowed to do it. And all that was taken away. Now, I read several of his obituaries, and at the bottom of one of them, it said he was predeceased by his wife Dorothy, and William Paulick had no children. I beg to differ.
Be her lady.